The radar gun chirped and the number jumped to 81, and the moment I saw it, I already knew someone's night was about to get interrupted. Maybe mine too. It was a quiet Thursday night on Route 16 outside Ashford, the kind of night where the road stretches out empty and your thoughts get louder than the radio. I flipped on the lights, red and blue splashing across the pavement, and the gray sedan ahead of me immediately slowed and pulled to the shoulder. And right there, before I even stepped out of the cruiser, something told me this stop was going to be different. Yeah, that happened. I'd been a patrol officer for almost 12 years by then, long enough to know most traffic stops are predictable. Someone speeds, you pull them over, you hear the same excuses, late for work, didn't see the sign, just keeping up with traffic. Sometimes people argue, sometimes they act nervous, sometimes they pretend they didn't do anything wrong at all. But this one didn't feel like that from the start. The car stopped clean signal on perfect control. Whoever was behind that wheel knew how to handle pressure. I stepped out of my cruiser and the night air hit me cold. My body camera blinked red on my chest like it always did. Gravel cracked under my boots as I walked up along the driver's side. Inside the car, the window was already down, and the driver had both hands on the steering wheel, fingers spread wide where I could see them. That's when I noticed the blue scrubs. Hospital scrubs. And hanging from the man's neck was a plastic ID badge catching flashes of my patrol lights. The driver spoke first. Calm voice, but there was urgency in it. "Officer, I'm heading to the hospital. It's an emergency." I kept my tone professional, same as always. "License and registration, sir." He nodded slowly, careful movements the way surgeons move when they're explaining something serious to a patient's family. "My name is Dr. Adrian Vale. I was called in for emergency surgery." I took the license from his hand. The wind pushed lightly across the roadside grass while I looked it over. Behind my cruiser, another car had slowed down and stopped a few lengths back, and sure enough, someone inside already had a phone pointed toward us. You see that a lot now. Every traffic stop turns into a live show for the internet. I glanced back at the doctor. "Sir, you were doing 81 and a 55. He didn't argue, didn't roll his eyes, just nodded once. "I know, a child's been brought in after a crash, internal bleeding. I'm the only pediatric trauma surgeon on call tonight." There was something about the way he said it. Not dramatic, not begging, just stating a fact like a man who had already seen too many nights like this. I walked back to my cruiser and ran his license through the system. Everything came back clean. No tickets, no warrants, valid insurance, the kind of record you almost never see anymore. When I looked up through the windshield, he was still sitting exactly the same way, hands on the wheel waiting. Dispatch crackled softly over the radio about some minor call across town, but I barely heard it. My eyes kept drifting back to that sedan. Something was bothering me. I stepped out again and started walking back toward the car. Halfway there, my hand reached up to my vest and touched the body camera. One small button, the red light went dark. No warning, no sound, just gone. When I reached the window again, I leaned a little closer. "Doctor," I said quietly, "do you remember a girl named Emma Hale?" For a second, he looked confused, like he was flipping through hundreds of cases in his head. "Emma Hale," he repeated. "6 months ago," I said. "Children's oncology, brain tumor." And then I saw it, recognition. The doctor leaned back slightly in his seat. "Yes," he said softly, "I remember her." I nodded once. "My daughter." The words hung there between us, flashing red and blue lights painting both our faces. Dr. Vale studied me for a moment before asking the question every parent secretly hopes they'll get to hear. "How is she?" I looked down at the asphalt before answering. "She started soccer last week." The doctor smiled, a tired smile, but a real one. "That's good," he said. "She was strong." We stood there a few seconds without talking. Just wind brushing past the road and the quiet hum of my patrol car engine. Then I asked, "You said the kid's waiting tonight." He nodded immediately. 8-year-old boy, car accident. They're trying to stabilize him, but they need surgery now. I glanced down the road toward the hospital lights in the distance. On a normal night, it was maybe a 10-minute drive from where we were. Longer if you hit every red light. I looked back at him. He was already gripping the wheel tighter. I stepped away from the car without saying anything. The camera on my chest stayed dark. When I got back into my cruiser, I picked up the radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12, I said. "Request intersection clearance along Route 16 to Memorial Medical, emergency escort." There was a pause on the other end. Then the dispatcher answered. "Copy that, Unit 12. I pulled onto the road and motioned with my hand. The doctor followed. The siren kicked on and the two cars tore down that highway like streaks of light, red and blue reflections flashing across empty storefronts as we moved through Ashford. Other officers stepped into intersections up ahead, stopping traffic before we even arrived. 70 miles an hour, 75. The gray sedan stayed right behind me the entire way. The 10-minute drive took 4 minutes and a little change. We swung into the hospital entrance and I killed the siren. The doctor was already out of the car before I even put the cruiser fully in park. He grabbed a black surgical bag from the passenger seat and ran toward the sliding glass doors. Halfway there, he turned back. "Officer." I looked up. He nodded once. "Thank you." Then the doors closed behind him. I stood there beside the cruiser for a few seconds, watching the hospital entrance like maybe something else would happen. Nothing did. Dispatch called again over the radio. "Unit 12, we've got a minor collision on East Pine. You available?" I picked up the mic. "Yeah," I said, "I'm free." I turned off the lights and drove away. 3 hours later, I was home in my kitchen when my phone buzzed. Unknown number, one message. "Surgery finished. The boy is stable." I read it twice. Then I typed back 4 words. "Thank you for the update." I took a screenshot and saved it in a folder labeled Emma. And honestly, I thought that was the end of it. Turns out I was wrong. Because the next morning, the video from that car behind us was everywhere online. Millions of views. But people weren't just talking about the escort. They were talking about something else. Frame by frame, the internet zoomed in on the moment I walked back to the sedan and touched my vest. The moment the red light on my camera disappeared. 6 minutes of missing audio. 3 days later, I was sitting inside an internal affairs office under fluorescent lights that made everything feel colder than it already was. An investigator sat across from me with a laptop and a printed report. He tapped a line on the page. "Officer Hale, your body camera was manually disabled at 21:21 hours. I nodded. "There was no malfunction," he continued. "No battery issue. No equipment error." I didn't argue. "So I'll ask directly," he said. "Why did you turn it off?" I looked at the report for a moment before answering. Because that conversation wasn't about a traffic stop. He wrote something down. A week later, the official decision came through. Policy violation. Failure to maintain mandatory recording during citizen contact. Written reprimand placed in my file. Retraining scheduled. No suspension. No charges. Officially, the report said 2 things. Emergency escort provided. Recording procedure violated. And the internet never agreed on what it meant. Some people called me a hero. Others said the rules exist for a reason, and I had no right to turn that camera off. 6 months later, I sat in a folding chair at a youth soccer field on a bright Saturday afternoon. Emma was sprinting down the sideline with a ponytail bouncing behind her, chasing the ball and laughing with her teammates. Healthy. Alive. I leaned back in the chair and pulled up that message again on my phone. The boy is stable. 2 children. 2 different nights. 1 decision in the middle of a dark highway. And 1 6-minute gap in the official record that'll probably follow me the rest of my career. So let me ask you something. If you were standing where I stood that night, looking at the doctor who once saved your child's life, knowing another kid was bleeding on an operating table somewhere across town, would you have kept the camera running and written the ticket, or would you have done exactly what I did? I want to hear what you think. Tell me in the comments. Was it the right call, or did I cross a line that shouldn't be crossed no matter what? And if you've ever been in a moment where the rules and your conscience pulled you in 2 different directions, yeah, share that story too.